All right, so good evening, everybody, and welcome to our third Advent gathering. This is the last Advent gathering that we're going to do like this. I'm going to record one for next week so that you have the fourth kind of candle and all that kind of stuff, but that way you can watch it on your own on Tuesday. I'm hoping to kind of travel and be off at that point, and it just that close to Christmas, we probably don't want to be on Zoom, at least for a few weeks. So this will be the last one that we do like this, but there will be one. There will be one for the following week. So just kind of watch for that link on Facebook, and I'll try to send it out to you as well. So tonight we're talking about nativity scenes. And I would love for us to, have the time to kind of sit down and make one together, which is what we would absolutely be doing if we were at Messy Christmas. We always try to make something, some kind of nativity scene of some sort. But we don't really get to do that this year. I hope you got the PDF that I emailed you, which is this really fun one. And we'll kind of come back and talk about it in a little bit, but you can cut it out and it'll show you where to fold it. And then you can have lots of fun coloring. I know Dean is very excited about this. And Dale's probably already got his colored. He just doesn't want to show off right now. But this one's really fun because it has all kinds of different characters. I don't know if you noticed, but it actually has Elizabeth and Zechariah. And they don't always make it into the nativity scene, but I thought that was really wonderful. And then you'll also notice that there are blank ones where you get to add your own characters, which I think is really fun too. And so we'll talk about where did this come from? So Saint Francis of Assisi is the one who is credited with creating the first nativity scene all the way back in 1223. And he wanted to help people learn the story. Remember, in 1223, most people wouldn't read. They certainly wouldn't have access to books or anything like that to read a good 200, 300 years before the printing press. So this was the way for people to learn the Christmas story. And so St. Francis brought it to life in what we would call a living Christmas story. So my home church and some other churches nearby, one just right down the road from us, a lot of times will do a drive-through, like a living nativity. And St. Francis was the first one to do that. Interestingly enough, not only was he trying to help people learn the story itself, he was also trying to combat some of the commercialism that Christmas, of the Christmas celebrations, where people were focusing on the gifts and the festivities and whatever, and not so much on the story. So I think it was kind of interesting that in 1223, Francis was dealing with the same kind of things that we kind of fuss about today. So, the more things change, the more they stay the same, I guess. But that was one of his kind of things. The popularity of doing this kind of living Christmas story spread all over Europe after Francis's first one. It just became this hugely popular thing. They would, small towns would reenact the story together, and kind of like the Passion plays in Germany and whatnot. This was, a big feast day and a big story to kind of reenact. By the 18th century, so people started creating like little actual nativities that they could have somewhere in their house, so their own version of these. And by the kind of 17th and 18th century, they would create not just a Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus. They would add the shepherds, add the animals, and we're going to come back to animals in a minute, but the wise men. But then if you look at some of them, you'll see like the whole village get involved, right? So you get the baker and the butcher and the candlestick maker, and it's just kind of everybody along the way. And this was a way of saying our whole town, like everybody's here, everybody's invited. For the rich and famous, it became this kind of status symbol to have this very fancy nativity, like finely crafted nativity scene that you owned. And you would have the nobility in your nativity. So the extra characters in your nativity would be, again, kind of the rich and famous. So if you think kind of Florence, Italy, it would be your just the ton in England, right? So the top upper crust. They would be the folks who would be hanging out at your nativity, which is slightly ironic because when we go back and look at the actual story in Luke's gospel, they would probably not be the ones who were hanging out in a cave with Mary and Joseph and the animals, but it became this kind of status symbol. After World War I, the idea of putting an outdoor nativity in like a church, on the church grounds, where people could drive by and see it or something like that, that kind of took off. And by the 1950s, people started making the outdoor, like when we think about the plastic, outdoor yard, nativities, that are kind of kitsch and funny. My neighbors have one. I love it. Winnie is a little bit frightened by it. But those became popular kind of by the 1950s. So it's this thing that like has grown and it spread all over the world and kind of shows up in all kinds of different ways. If you go to the south of France, particularly in Provence, they are famous for their nativities and the different people, the different townspeople kind of being a part of the nativity. And you can buy not just the main, Mary and Joseph and the baby, but it becomes this thing to kind of buy the different, the postman and, all of these kind of figures. And everybody does them differently, right? If you look at an Italian nativity, guess who Mary and Joseph and the baby are going to look like? They're going to look Italian, right? Most likely. And the same is true, kind of everybody has this different way of approaching it. So I thought I would share, if I can get my screen to share correctly, I thought I would share just some famous paintings of the Nativity, and we can just kind of look and see at some of the differences and how different forms of art changed our perception. Can y'all see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right, great. So there's one from 1460. You see Mary and Joseph. Pay attention to these two animals right here. We're going to kind of come back to them. We see these kind of beautiful angels, I guess, off to the side, and I think these are shepherds to the other side.
Well, they don't have baby Jesus swaddled.
No, baby Jesus is definitely not swaddled. I'm not sure, but maybe a little bit cold for a newborn. So here's another one, also from the 1400s. Look at the lutes. Very time-specific instrument there. Very different. Mary's hair. We see a very pious, ornately dressed Mary. Another one, the shepherds off to the side. We see the ox and we see the donkey. We see angels around. Again, a very different style. Baby Jesus still not wrapped. And again, we see the ox and the donkey kind of hanging out in the back. And actually Joseph is back here in the back. And we've caught the angel in the midst of her declaration to the shepherds, kind of mid scene there in this one.
In that one, Mary looks as young, they talk about she was 13, 14, maybe 15. And that one, she actually looks like a very young
Yeah,
girl.
she does. She looks incredibly young. It's interesting that Joseph actually doesn't look quite as old as he does in some of the other paintings. Those, we don't know, but the tradition has kind of long been in some areas that Joseph was particularly older. We see this one is just a very stark mother, Joseph, child. This one, I think, so Botticelli. So those are some really happy angels hanging out at that nativity. They're dancing. You've got them off to the sides, like hanging around with the shepherds. Baby Jesus is already reaching for his mother, practically sitting up, and again, if you look, there are two animals that are present, that oxen and the donkey, and there's some more angels at the bottom. So a very cheerful nativity. This is one of the Adoration of the Kings, so specifically the Magi and their arrival. And we see kind of their foreignness in the way that the artist has painted them. Their dogs present in this one, which, is obviously important. This one, I almost scrolled past. I had to go back and look at the date because I thought this one might even be particularly modern. And yet this one was painted in 1513. But look at the kind of broken down building. It almost looks like it could be in a city, kind of a derelict, part of the house. But the Holy Family kind of sheltered in place with some angels looking on. So a very fancy one. You can tell the types of clothing, the different types of clothing. Since El Greco, very stark in its colors. This one, he doesn't just paint Mary with the baby. He's added in Lorenzo and Francesco. So he's added in some important people from his day and age, he's put them into the scene. So again, kind of a status symbol or a way of kind of elevating the importance of these figures. And again, we see the oxen in the background. Another adoration, that there, the baby is actually swaddled, so that's good. Here's Rembrandt. Rembrandt also gets the shepherd dog, the sheepdog in the mix, and you see the various ages of the shepherds as they gather around. And just a few more. Mary and Joseph, some animals in the background. Mary tending to the baby. This one is one that is particularly different in terms of culture. We see Mary on the bed and Joseph, and there's actually like a midwife in the back, which actually was probably true. Actually, Joseph might not have even been in there, depending, but the local midwife probably was there. So this painting actually has her kind of present. So very different take on it. So anybody have kind of an interesting nativity that they want to share, and you have a chance to kind of say maybe something about that particular nativity. I see Rebecca's hand up and she's ready. She's ready for show and tell. So go ahead, Rebecca.
So this is not our normal nativity, because our normal nativity is a little Tykes one. And let's just say that the members of the nativity scene are scattered throughout our house. So we went next door to my mom's house. This is one that my mom has had since I was little. And it is, it just has the three main, Mary, Joseph, and the baby, and then just a baby goat, and that's it. And it paints a I don't know. It makes it look very dainty to me because it's porcelain. My favorite's the little tykes because they're all very short.
I love that.
I hate if you haven't seen the little tykes Nativity set, it is awesome.
Yeah.
But it includes a lot of animals in it, which I think is appropriate for kids. So
yes,
to drive home the stable idea.
Absolutely. Someone else want to go?
I have one, but just let me find it. But this is a one that my kids and my grandkids played with, and they could move the people around however they wanted to. And Tom made the stable. So it's pretty special. Let me see if I can get you down here to see it. My clumsiness. Hang on. I don't know if you can see it or not. Whoop,
Keep going down. Keep going down.
Oh yeah.
There we. Oh, now you're too far.
That's perfect.
I'm not good at this.
There we go.
That's nice.
Oh, that's really nice.
But it's the kids' grands and the kids have all played with it over the years. And
that's really special.
Then they can make up stories as they play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I love it.
I have one.
All right, Pam.
All right, I have a couple.
Pam.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pam.
Sorry. Pam Attaway. And then Pam Martin.
Okay, the Pams. So when we went to Thailand, I have a couple others that I love, but we couldn't take very much. And so my sister had given me these little pottery things. So
cool.
This is Mary, Joseph, and then here's the baby.
Nice.
And it's just tiny, but I don't know, I love it. And it, they don't really look like a certain ethnicity. They could be anybody basically. Mm-hmm. And so we kept it on our shelf, and it was interesting. Like, we didn't have many things there, but the students that would come to our house would ask some questions about it. So yeah, I love it. It's really special. Another missionary there had a nativity scene that was made somewhere over like in Laos, but it was bamboo and it was on stilts, and it was like a lot of bamboo and grass, and I coveted it. I still want it. I tried to find one so hard and I couldn't find it, but if I ever get my hands on that, I want one too.
Yeah, that's neat.
Beautiful.
Really neat. Pam Martin?
Okay, well, I need to preempt mine because in 1965, the Peanuts came out with the Christmas story, or their own little version of Christmas Story. I was 7 at the time, so of course that made a huge impact on me. And then a few years ago, they had a 50th anniversary of the Peanuts. Mm-hmm. Peanuts have always been to my heart. So, let's see if I can get that up there.
Oh, neat.
So I got that, and that's been my sweetest addition.
I love it. The Peanut, yes. That's great.
It really exemplifies it because as kids are growing up, and that's where they really get their first exposure. And I loved it.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Mom, I know you have yours.
Yeah. I actually collect them. I have way more than I should have.
I'm responsible for that.
Yeah. I have the one Johanna brought me from her first trip to Israel, and several others. But this one, my mother gave me. Let's see if I can get it where it shows up. It's a pottery one that she bought in the mountains of North Carolina. And it's got the animals, and then in the back of it, you can see Mary and Joseph and all. And one of the things that's really interesting about this one is it's all one piece of clay that's been sculpted and made into the three-dimensional thing here. And that was one of the reasons that my mother was fascinated by it, and she knew I liked it. And of course, it's a very special gift. So.
Yeah. Mom was going to try to show you the big nativity that she has set up in the dining room, which is
it's a ceramic one. Yeah.
Ceramic one, and the Mary and Joseph look like this, and then the baby Jesus looks similar to this, slightly different but similar. And the one that I have right here and the one that she has, my granddad, her dad actually made. He was doing ceramics. I'm still not sure. I know that whole story of how he ended up doing ceramics, but
It's just a hobby.
Several of us have these ceramic nativity scenes that he made. And they're very just kind of plain white. You don't, like Pam, like you said, they almost could be anybody, really. And I have my mom's collection is maybe a little bit worse than mine in terms of size, but I have my fair share of ones from around the world. This one is made out of felt. I don't know if you can see these, but that's baby Jesus. Mm-hmm. And Mary. Notice the gold halo kind of around it. And I got this one in part because the sheep. I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist those sheep. But this one was made in Peru, and the whole nativity scene fits in the palm of God's hands. Is how they've kind of designed it. So I like that one. Then these are also from Peru. You can kind of see the Peruvian shepherd and the sweet little baby Jesus. He's also not swaddled. So he always makes me chuckle a little bit. I don't know if you can see this one, but this one is inside of a walnut shell. So this teeny tiny little one, and this is another one that is tiny enough to fit. This one's from Guatemala, and it's tiny enough to fit inside this little box. So those little tiny pieces. So I have one more to show you. Anybody else have one that they want to show or share? Oh, sure.
My sister has the one we had growing up playing with for her kids, but this is mine just on the shelf that I put out. It doesn't have any animals. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Very pretty.
That one's really pretty.
It has the angel and the wise men and the shepherd, but it doesn't really have any animals in it.
Okay.
Pretty.
But I do want to show you one more thing.
Yeah.
That tree, Susan Hamilton made me that little tree. And
yeah. That one's pretty. That one's really pretty. Sherry, did you have one you wanted to?
Dale does, yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, we've got some nativity figures that we're going to attempt to show here.
Sorry about the keyboard.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
So these were moms, and there's not a house to go with it. And this was a nativity that she and Dad had kind of post after I moved out because they're clay or
because they're breakable.
Yeah, they're breakable. So, but we don't have angels, but we've got animals. So Tanya, if we put ours together, we would have it all covered, wouldn't we? But
that's really special.
Yeah, that's one that we have here. I'll say real quick, I was a little disappointed when you were showing your pictures that you didn't go into the Aldersgate archives and pull out what I'm sure is extensive collection of live nativity scene pictures from the 70s when the youth used to do live nativity scenes.
I'll save that for a bigger crowd. Yeah. How about that?
That's a great memory of Christmas and of Aldersgate and of nativity scenes. So whenever I think about nativity scenes, I think about the times we had and the hot chocolate and the cold weather and just those live nativities that we would do in the front yard there at Aldersgate.
Yeah, I have similar memories from my home church and churches that I've served. Yeah, it brings you into the story, doesn't it? So this one is mine from Israel, from my first trip. Kind of blends in some, but you can see, and this one, the reason why I bought it is because it's actually a music box. And of course, can you hear it? It's the fastest version of Silent Night you will ever hear. And of course, the more you turn it, the faster it gets. So it's always really cheerful. And then I'll show you these. These were two, ooh, can you see them? That I bought in Germany last year to kind of add. And one, they're both made out of wood. One is particularly more colorful. And this is unfortunately how I travel. I can't just pack one. I end up with two. And only like 5 or 6 new ornaments. That's not a growing problem on my tree or anything, all these ornaments that I bring back. But so all of these, I mean, all these faces are, you know, all the nativities are so different. Dale, like you said, you've got animals. Tanya, you've got angels. All of them are different. Some of them are just kind of the basics, you know, Mary, Joseph, and the baby. But they all kind of represent the artist, and they represent the communities where they're created. And so I think that's really special, right? Because then we get to think about ourselves and how Mary and Joseph were people like us. The shepherds were people like us, and whatnot. And so we all kind of get to be a part of the story. And so I would encourage you, maybe not with the same artistic skill, some of us may be better at than others, but to kind of consider who the extra characters you would add if you created your own kind of from this version. You know, who would you add to the story, and how would you, what are your characters? What does your Mary and Joseph look like? What does baby Jesus look like? Is he wrapped in swaddling clothes, or is he kind of, you know, heavenly light shining on him? Are there little cherubs kind of floating around, or like in Botticelli's, is there a whole party kind of going on? You know, what does yours look like? And that's really my biggest like devotion for tonight, is just kind of thinking about how you know, St. Francis gave us the symbols and this idea of creating this living Christmas story as a way of drawing us into the story. This is our story. It tells us something important about who God is and who we are. And so Francis, all of those generations ago, kind of drew us in. And that's what all of these are for. All these symbols are like our Christmas tree. As Rebecca pointed out on week 1, that Christmas tree points the way to God. It's not just a random tree that we happen to kind of one day decide to bring in and stick ornaments on. It has a meaning, it has a purpose. So the animals, and I will say that today is how old I was when I learned this. So this is something new I'm going to share with you. Maybe some of you already knew this, I don't know. But why is there always, you know, of all of the animals that we see in the Nativity, sometimes we see sheep that have come along with the shepherd. But more often than not, you will see some kind of cow or oxen and some kind of donkey. And I think we probably all assume that the donkey is the one that like came with Mary and Joseph. Maybe, I don't know, like maybe that's their donkey that finally is getting a break. That's kind of what I figured. And I thought about this when we were setting up the Aldersgate Nativity. I don't know if some of you have noticed that it hasn't been out, or it wasn't out on the first Sunday in Advent, but tune in on Sunday and you're going to see that beautiful large nativity back in the sanctuary for our lessons and carols. But sure enough, there's a camel that comes with the wise man, and he's extraordinarily large, by the way. And then there's a shepherd with these sheep, but the two other animals, a donkey and an ox or cow. So why those animals? Goes all the way back to the most random verse in Isaiah, one that you never hear quoted. I mean, you just really never hear this one. But Isaiah chapter 1, verse 3. So right at the very beginning of Isaiah's prophecy and his kind of story and his message to the people of Israel. It says in verse 3, An ox knows its owner, and a donkey its master's feeding trough. But Israel doesn't know, my people don't, and this is a common English version, so it puts it bluntly, my people don't behave intelligently. That's very common English. I think the King James probably makes it sound a little bit nicer. But that idea of the ox and the donkey, the ox knows its owner, and the donkey knows its master. And so the tradition is that in the nativity scene, with Jesus present, there's an oxen and a donkey who know their master. So there you go. Is that legend, or is that a big draw? You know, I mean, I don't know, but it's a really beautiful connection if that's what it's intended to be, I think. I want to share one more picture with you before we do our Advent wreath lighting. And this is a modern picture of the Nativity. And sometimes the most modern pictures can be particularly stark and meaningful. Get this one full size. So we see Mary and Joseph at a gas station with gas attendants around. It's just a very kind of humbling and bold picture of who Mary and Joseph might be in 2020. I don't know. But I thought that picture was really beautiful and maybe even a little bit challenging. And again, it sends us back into the idea of wondering, where do we see ourselves in this story? Where would we be? Would we be kind of safe and cozy in the inn? Or would we be a midwife out with Mary? Would we be with the shepherds, or just in the crowds in Bethlehem? I don't know, but it's something worth thinking about. So let's do our Advent lighting at this point. Let me get, of course, I've lost my liturgy here. But today we light 3 candles. So we start with a candle for hope, and then we light our second candle for love. And tonight we add the candle for joy. Okay, so I'm going to light them all 3 at the same time so that I only have to pick this up once, and so that I don't lose my candles, because they're all, my pink one in particular is falling apart. But so 2 purple candles. Pink candle. We light 1 candle for hope, because the world is broken and the wait is long, but hope just won't let go. Hope holds space for all our longings, lingers on the edge of harsh reality, like the dawn gently awakening the sky. Keep awake, she whispers, for the world is being made new. So we light 1 candle because it only takes 1, Christ with us. We light 1 candle for love, because the world is broken and the wait is long, but love never ends. Love faithfully goes about the work of casting out fear, speaking truth, healing the deepest wounds, crossing the divide from this world to the next and back again. Here I am, she whispers, the servant of the Lord. So we light 1 candle because it only takes 1, Christ with us. We light 1 candle for joy, because the world is broken and the wait is long, but our joy cannot be contained. Like a toddler topping the thrones of power with a gleeful swipe, joy pierces our silence with song, interrupts our sighing with laughter, unshackles our fumbling feet to dance. My soul magnifies the Lord, she whispers, and my spirit rejoices with God, my Savior. So we light one candle because it only takes one. Christ with us. Amen.
Amen.
Woo. Oops. I'll clean that melted wax up in a minute. I think I'm gonna have to replace my candles before next year. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.